Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a woodturner, for woodturners. Had a bunch of this teak laying around the shop for quite a while. It's 1 inch thick and it was a really long board, and I was thinking it's got to be something fun to make out of this. You know, it's used for outdoor turnings and outdoor projects because teak holds up to about anything. Well, I thought, you know, if it could hold up to anything, it could hold up to my wife's cooking. I didn't say that. But the thing is, my wife makes a really mean pot of chili, and it's wonderful. But she makes like a gigantic pot of it every time. So I figured she needed a good spatula to stir it around with, and this is made of the teak, and look how beautiful that wood is once it's been turned. All I have on here is mineral oil finish. Now this is a big sucker. I mean, it's about 14 inches long, and you know, you can boil in trouble. You can really turn a pot with it, but the whole idea is there's a lot of stuff in there. You want to make one smaller, you can. The project is the same thing, you just change the dimensions a little bit. One thing I did that's a little special on here, I have this radius right here for pots that have more of a gentle curve in them, and over here made a sharper edge for pots that are more straight up and down, because getting in the corners is really important when you're cooking. I've learned that because I have burned many things in my day. Now, to do this, you're not going to make just one. I know you're not going to make just one, because you're going to cut this out of a piece of wood, and wow, look how much wood I'm wasting by cutting this out. So I made up a template, and the template's pretty cool because I can just take it down here, put it on the wood like so, and just mark it out really quickly and economically use the wood that I have, right? And then the real trick of it is you take it, swing it around this way, line it up, and then just connect the dots again. And you just keep doing this on the whole piece of wood till you've used it all up. Because these make great gifts and they're very easy to make. And if you're a beginning turner, this is going to be a fun project because it's just spindle turning, and we're actually going to use just one tool while we're turning. But the tool we're going to use that does not involve turning is going to be the bandsaw. This looks like a mess, but it does make sense. I have spatula 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the little X's are where I'm cutting the wood out. You'll actually wind up with a blank here that you can use for pins or something later, and that's nice. So I've got my bandsaw set up, I've got my dust collection system running. Now I have the bandsaw running. One thing about the cuts on this is you're going to wind up in this area, unless you have a really thin blade on your bandsaw, you're going to have to kind of fish it in and out to get that section cut out. But as long as you take your time and keep your hands away from the blade, everything should be fine. And one thing you don't want to do that I found out was, cut down a little more there. You can cut into the spatula part here, but don't cut into here, because believe it or not, that cut will show up very quickly and be hard to get rid of. So you want to not go into the, I guess, the handle very far. So we got to do a couple cuts where we cut and then back up. So I'm just going down the center of the line so I don't waste any wood or make it wonky. That'd be a bad thing. Come down to here. Now I've got to back up a bit because I've got to start curving this blade. I've got a 1/2 inch blade on here. So I got to take my time to get over to this next section. And then slowly curve it back. There we go. Now we're running straight. So there we go. Now I'm just going to nibble that off just like I did this side, and then we got to make a cut on this edge. Now on our fine spatula, it is actually very thin at the bottom because you don't want a big thick piece of wood on there. So you have to taper this, and if you want to use a sander, you can. That'll take a while. But what I did was I went ahead and found the center here, and I made a 1/4 inch here, and up here this is a 1/2 inch wide. So we're going to cut these two slats off, and it'll make it a lot easier for us to finish this up. Now making this cut can be a little tricky though. So on my bandsaw here, I have a nice big block of wood that's nice and straight, so I can actually push against it like this, and I'm not going to get my hands into the blade. So what we'll do is turn this on, get this lined up, and start feeding it in. You got to take your time now because you're cutting through about 3 inches of wood. It's almost like resawing a piece of wood to make 2 pieces of wood out of one. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to let the blade just stick out just a bit like that. Now back it off. And then you can bring this like so and nip that off, but I'm going to wait until I do this side. That way I have more structure here on the bandsaw table, giving me more support. And it doesn't have to be a perfectly clean cut because we will sand this later. There we go. Now, we just take it like so. Find my little marks on the handle there. The first one is off. There we go. That's what it looks like. Now, how do we hold this sucker on there? I've seen people use drive centers and live centers on it, but I'm really worried with the drive center. You could split the wood. And the one method I've seen that I really like a lot is using the chuck jaws. You can actually slide it in between the jaws like so, and then tighten it down a little bit. One thing you do have to make sure of, so I want to make sure that it is centered. So in other words, I have equal distance on either side here, so this is as centered as possible. And this is kind of like herding cats right now. Get that there. And actually what I'm doing now is I'm going to loosely tighten that so it holds it, right? I'm going to go over here to the tailstock now and bring the tailstock. And over on this end, I made an X, and then I made a dot there with my punch, so I can center this up there with the point on this live center. Because you can see I'm pulling up a little bit, so this could be a little bit out of, I want to say out of round, but it's, in other words, this angle here might be off a little bit, so it wants to shoot it that way. So this just kind of forces everything to be in the proper orientation along the lathe. That was simple to say, right? Yeah, anyway. So we got this wacky thing out here, and we have this little thing here. So I'm bringing my tool rest up, and you can see I have a shorter tool rest on here, so I can clear this, I can clear the live center. And I'll bring this up to here, and I don't have to be right up against this edge, that would be bad. So I'm locking it down, and everything's spinning fine. Let me just line that up a little better. So that's spinning good. So you want to watch out for that wing right there. If you hit that with your knuckles, you're in trouble. Now the cool thing about this project is we are going to be using one tool today, and it is this 1/2 inch spindle gouge with a swept back grind. It's nice and heavy, but also can make the gentle curves that we need. So let's go ahead. That looks good. I'm going to get my face shield. Well, I'm going to hold my face shield over here yet. Now that might sound strange. I don't really need it yet. If you're new at this, you could put it on because if you get into here, you might have a problem. But I'll put the face shield on when I start turning this edge over here. That's going to be the part that I'd be worried about. So everything's in here, everything's tightened down. We're going to turn the lathe on slow speed, stand out of the line of fire. Looks good. Bring it up. Okay. That's probably about 700-800 RPM, maybe a little faster. I'm going to start on this end because I have the most strength when I start on this end of a spindle turning. And so all I'm doing is roughing out, right? So it's just like when you use a roughing gouge. So I'm just chunking my way down. And teak turns beautifully. It also takes a very nice shine from sandpaper. And by doing this little motion here, I'm only making about a 1/2 inch cut each time. So I don't have to reposition my body or my hands every time I make a move. So if you're trying to do like this long hero cut, you got to go all the way down like so. Now's the time to do that though, since I'd roughed it out. So all I'm doing is getting down to a cylinder. Looks good. Yep, that's nice and smooth. So I probably would end this about right here, is what I think. So that'll be the end of my handle. So I want to go ahead and now move over to this part and rough this out a bit so I can start working on that transition. So I'm going to stop the lathe for that, and reposition my tool rest. Now I mentioned earlier this is about 14 inches long because it's a monster spatula, but for the other dimensions, this is about 3 inches wide, okay? And by the time we get done turning and sanding, this becomes about a 1/4 inch all the way up. It has a little taper to it. The handle tapers nicely too to give it some pretty look. I didn't put any decoration on here, you know how I'll burn things in, use the wire to make marks, because this is going to be around food. So all that groove does is give you a chance to put food in there, and it's going to be harder to wash out. One other thing on this is that you can make any size you want. Don't go large. You can make this really tiny. Think about how nice that would be if the spatula is about like that, and center that handle there. So then you have one that you can use in smaller pots and really more daily use. Again, like I said, this is for stirring a cauldron when we're making up my wife's famous chili, which I love, and I hope she's making some tonight because we can use this then. Okay, now I've moved the tool rest over and I'm making sure everything clears. Now, why did I not wear the face mask over here? Because this is a spindle of wood. There's very little wood right here on this edge that might chip and come off. This is a strong hold over here. I know that. This is held well here. This wood is thin and the grain is running this way. When I start turning this, if I get a catch here, this whole section could split and fly off. That's why a face mask is really required when you get to this point, because it's much easier to make a mistake here and have something catastrophic happen. Now, I've got my face mask, I've got this, that's clearing. I'm gonna bring this down. All I'm really gonna do is just round this edge over, and I'm gonna try to blend this area here. That's the critical part of this connection, is you wanna make this aesthetically nice. Aesthetically nice, is that redundant? We wanna make this nice and aesthetic. I didn't improve that either, did it? Okay, so we're turning air, so I'm going to turn this on its side and come across like so. And I'm watching up top. I'm watching that profile because I can see it. Now the only downside is I have my floor painted white so I can see darker woods. So what I have to do is make sure that my eyesight is going down to the tool rest down there on the banjo. It's dark, so then I can see the silhouette against it better. And you really have to watch your technique here because it is all about you moving your body and making contact and then using your body to make that curve, because since you're turning air, there's nothing really for the bevel to ride on and give you a feeling or sense of security. So I'm coming down into here. There we go. Now this is why I'm using this tool. It's thicker, and by being thicker it hangs out over the tool rest and doesn't vibrate. So for this intersection here, I'm a little bit farther away from the wood. Come in here and blend that. You can see there's a line right there, and I'm trying to get rid of that little bitty line. And whenever I make a spatula, no two are exactly alike. I guess if you're in the business of making them and selling them, you want to keep that look the same, but with me I kind of let it free form, and that adds to the interest of them because each one's unique. Now you could come here and turn this edge thinking that you could round the edge over, but really you can't. It'll just put a very, very small radius on there, not enough that'll make any difference. So we're gonna sand that later and make that round. But now you can see I've got my intersection going there, so we're gonna move the tool rest and start working on the area and clean it up a little bit more. Now remember, we cut this to a 1/2 inch, so actually I better not work on this now, because if I turn this down to a 1/2 inch, it's going to be really wobbly when I'm back over on this area over here. So instead of that, I've set my tool rest over here, and we're going to start tapering this down and kind of eye that in and get the shaft or the handle really close to that. So we're going to come here. There's not really an easy way to put a curve on this the entire length for the aesthetics of that. So I'm just going to try to make a nice smooth line, but I'm going to round the end over here and just take a little bit of wood. And again, we're still using the same tool right now because it does a beautiful job of working spindles. And I'm using my tool rest also as a depth gauge, and I have it set up to where it tapers in just a little bit, so you can see I'm taking a little bit more wood off each pass I make here because it's going in closer. So I'm just backing off and coming back and taking a little more this way. So here we go. I'm going to keep coming in like this, and using the tool rest as a guide gives me a nice straight edge. So I'll have very little sanding to do when I'm getting ready to part this off. Or getting ready to finish this up, I mean. There we go, that looks good. Again, I didn't put any decoration in here, but you can if you want. I was just thinking of cleaning it later, and if I have to do the dishes, I know I have to clean it. By the way, if you do clean this, hand wash it in warm soapy water and then dry it off with a towel and set it off to the side. And I'll show you the finish we're going to use a little bit later. And it's easy to replace it and reapply it. So there we go. I got a little bit of a round here. I've got that going there. So it's got a little shape to it and a little interest in it. The wood itself is so beautiful, you don't really have to knock yourself out on the shape of this. One last little pass here. That looks good.
Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a wood turner for wood turners.